Tony Johnson for Towleroad.com. We are joined by Congressman Jerrold Nadler, who represents the west side of Manhattan in New York and also parts of Brooklyn. He is the chief author, and he wrote the original bill called the Permanent Partners Immigration Act, which is now the Uniting American Families Act. And I wanted to talk to the congressman about, now that there is such a wide lead in the House, you picked up consecutive seats in 2006 and 2008, and a big lead in the Senate as well, maybe 59 seats there. What's the likelihood of the Uniting American Families Act being brought up in committee and then possibly going to a vote?
Oh, I think we'll certainly bring it up in committee. And whether it'll go to a vote, I don't know. I can't estimate likelihood yet, simply because we haven't talked. I mean, it's very early in the session, and we haven't even organized the committee, come to think of it yet. That is to say, assigned all the new members. We should bring it up. We should hopefully have a vote, but we'll have to talk to the leadership and see if they're willing to do that or if they're too timid.
For folks that don't know, just explain basically what the bill does.
What the bill does essentially is to define a new status called permanent partner, and to say that, and then it says, it adds the word "or permanent partner" everywhere in the Immigration and Nationality Act after the word spouse, so that, and the basic idea is that you can apply, in effect, to bring in your husband or wife or fiance to jump the line. If you're an American citizen, you can, or permanent resident, you can bring in, and you decide to marry a German or a French person or whatever, you can bring them in to the United States. The idea being that families should not be separated. But of course, if you're gay, we don't have legalized gay marriage yet. You can't do that. So this would simply recognize, it has nothing to do with the gay marriage debate. In fact, I introduced it before that debate really got started. But it simply says that the Immigration Act should not work wanton cruelty and insist on keeping people apart. And that if you have the equivalent of a husband or a wife or a fiance, which is what we define a permanent partner as, essentially, you can bring that person into the United States.
The immigration reform was a big issue in the primaries last year in the presidential contest. A lot of folks that thought John McCain's at the beginning was undermined because of his stance on immigration. The immigration bill, the reform bill, died in Congress and it wasn't adopted. What do you think the likelihood is of an omnibus immigration bill coming up? And if that's the case, does it make it more likely that this could be part of that bill?
Well, I certainly hope that this would be part of that bill, if there's an immigration bill. I don't know what the likelihood of that coming up. I mean, it's an issue we can't continue to duck and we have to deal with. But really, it'll be up to the Obama administration as to their priorities. That will be one of the major fights that we have. And they've got to decide, you've got that, you've got the financial problem, you've got health care reform, you've got a number of other things. They have to decide the priority and when they want to do it. And if they put it off too long, then we in Congress will push it.
You have actually an incredibly, to end this, you have an interesting district because you represent the west side of Manhattan, which may have one of the largest LGBT populations in America that you represent. You've been a champion for the community the entire time you've been in Congress. You also have, in Brooklyn, you have probably the largest Orthodox Jewish community in the country, two sort of very different groups of people, and you've been steadfast in your support for the LGBT community. Has that hurt you at all among your constituents in Brooklyn who are Orthodox?
Somewhat, with a few people, but not overwhelmingly. I mean, it hasn't been a major issue. Now, maybe if that community were a much larger part of the district, they would assert, really try to pressure me on that issue. But maybe they would, but they haven't. I mean, I get that. I've lost some support, but not really significant because of that. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. It was sort of funny. I remember when Sunder was being considered in the legislature,
the Sexual Orientation Non-Discrimination Act in New York State.
One Hasidic individual from Borough Park, we were talking one day, and he started expressing real consternation that this bill may pass and it would be terrible. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you remember when the city council considered the sexual, I forget what the name of the bill was.
Gay Rights Bill, 1986.
The Gay Rights Bill back in 1986. He says, yeah. He says, I said, were you there? He says, yeah, I was there. I I was there in the audience, and I was against it. I was demonstrating against it. I said, fine. I said, do you remember what happened? He said, no, what happened? I said, it passed. And he looked at me and I said, yeah, and has it affected you in any way? Have you noticed it? Have you been upset by it? And he just looked at me and said, gee, I didn't know that.
Thank you for being such a fierce advocate for our community. Congressman Jerrold Nadler from the state of New York. I'm actually a constituent of the congressman's, and he represents Brooklyn and Manhattan. I'm Corey Johnson for Towleroad.com. Keep coming back to us.